My ex-wife, who cheated and abandoned our family years ago, shows up at my door with another man's child, wanting to be a family again. I slammed the door in her face. Some context here. My ex-wife, Angela, F36, and I, M37, met when we were in our mid-20s. I was around 24 and we were working at the same firm. After being in a relationship for 2 years, we got married, and within 3 years of our marriage, we had 2 daughters, now aged 9 and 7. The second pregnancy was unexpected, and she wasn't happy about it. But she didn't terminate it, even though I told her that it would be okay with me if she did, since I didn't want to put her through anything she didn't want. After our first daughter, things were still great between us, and we were as in love as we could be. However, that changed after the second pregnancy. She became really moody and irritable, constantly picking on me or our eldest. I figured that this was due to hormones, so I tried to make peace with this new version of Angela. We thought things would improve over time, but they only got worse. My daughter and I learned to walk on eggshells around her. I was taking care of everything, even though she was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. She had quit her job of her own volition after our first child. She did all the work around the house and took care of our eldest while I worked until she got pregnant for a second time. We had to hire a housekeeper while she was pregnant because she said she was too tired to do the housework along with looking after our kids. I agreed, even though it stretched our budget since I wasn't earning enough at the time. I didn't want to inconvenience Angela, especially while she was pregnant. I assumed she would return to looking after the house and kids during the day after our second daughter was born. Let me make it clear that I wasn't one of those husbands who did nothing around the house. After coming back from work, I did whatever I could to help out, even though I was exhausted from working. After she gave birth to our younger daughter, I thought she would take a few months, but then bounce back and we could return to our normal lives. But several months passed, and she showed no signs of changing. She remained cranky and irritable, refusing to do any work around the house. She would just sit at home all day and watch television. She didn't even play with the kids and would pay our neighbor to take them out to the park occasionally. I don't mean to sound resentful, but I felt that way because I was slogging at work day and night while she wouldn't even do the bare minimum at home. It was also becoming quite expensive for me to pay the housekeeper to handle all the cooking, cleaning, and other miscellaneous chores. I had to cover all the other expenses as well, and I wanted to save money for our daughter's future, which was becoming almost impossible because Angela refused to help me. After almost 6 months since our younger daughter's birth, I decided we couldn't go on like this, and I had to talk to Angela. I knew this would be a difficult discussion, so I asked my parents to watch our daughters for one day, and they agreed. That day, I sat Angela down and told her that I knew she was tired after 2 pregnancies, but I needed her to help me and work with me. I explained that having a housekeeper was becoming too expensive for us, and I needed her to honor her word and take on at least some of the household chores so we could renegotiate and lower the housekeeper's salary to save some money. She opposed the idea and instantly rejected it, claiming she was too busy watching the kids to do any work around the house, and said I should start earning more instead of making excuses and blaming her for my financial condition. I tried to explain that I was already doing my best, but she also needed to pull her weight if we wanted to make this marriage work. I mentioned how she wasn't truly looking after the kids, as she allowed them to watch television with her for hours while she tuned into tacky reality TV. This is something the housekeeper had mentioned to me casually. I soon realized bringing this up was a mistake, as she flared up and accused me of spying on her through the housekeeper. She went on a tirade against me, stating that she wouldn't stand for this anymore and was done being pushed around while I sat at a desk for a few hours every day. She claimed it was my fault that I couldn't afford a housekeeper and that it was shameful for me to beg her to help me since I was supposed to be the man of the house. It was illogical, and my ex-wife, who cheated and abandoned our family years ago, shows up at my door with another man's child, wanting to be a family again. I slammed the door in her face. Some context here. My ex-wife Angela, 36, and I, 37 male, met when we were in our mid-20s. I was around 24 and we were working at the same firm. After being in a relationship for 2 years, we got married, and within 3 years of our marriage, we had 2 daughters, now aged 9 and 7. The second pregnancy was unexpected and she wasn't happy about it, but she didn't terminate it, even though I told her that it would be okay with me if she did, since I didn't want to put her through anything she didn't want. After our first daughter, things were still great between us and we were as in love as we could be. However, that changed after the second pregnancy. She became really moody and irritable, constantly picking on me or our eldest. I figured that this was due to hormones, so I tried to make peace with this new version of Angela. We thought things would improve over time, but they only got worse. My daughter and I learned to walk on eggshells around her. I was taking care of everything, even though she was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. She had quit her job of her own volition after our first child. She did all the work around the house and took care of our eldest while I worked until she got pregnant for a second time. We had to hire a housekeeper while she was pregnant because she said she was too tired to do the housework along with looking after our kids. I agreed, even though it stretched our budget since I wasn't earning enough at the time. I didn't want to inconvenience Angela, especially while she was pregnant. I assumed she would return to looking after the house and kids during the day after our second daughter was born. Let me make it clear that I wasn't one of those husbands who did nothing around the house. After coming back from work, I did whatever I could to help out, even though I was exhausted from working. After she gave birth to our younger daughter, I thought she would take a few months, but then bounce back and we could return to our normal lives. But several months passed and she showed no signs of changing. She remained cranky and irritable, refusing to do any work around the house. She would just sit at home all day and watch television. She didn't even play with the kids and would pay our neighbor to take them out to the park occasionally. I don't mean to sound resentful, but I felt that way because I was slogging at work day and night while she wouldn't even do the bare minimum at home. It was also becoming quite expensive for me to pay the housekeeper to handle all the cooking, cleaning, and other miscellaneous chores. I had to cover all the other expenses as well, and I wanted to save money for our daughter's future, which was becoming almost impossible because Angela refused to help me. After almost 6 months since our younger daughter's birth, I decided we couldn't go on like this, and I had to talk to Angela. I knew this would be a difficult discussion, so I asked my parents to watch our daughters for one day, and they agreed. That day, I sat Angela down and told her that I knew she was tired after 2 pregnancies, but I needed her to help me and work with me. I explained that having a housekeeper was becoming too expensive for us, and I needed her to honor her word and take on at least some of the household chores so we could renegotiate and lower the housekeeper's salary to save some money. She opposed the idea and instantly rejected it, claiming she was too busy watching the kids to do any work around the house, and said I should start earning more instead of making excuses and blaming her for my financial condition. I tried to explain that I was already doing my best, but she also needed to pull her weight if we wanted to make this marriage work. I mentioned how she wasn't truly looking after the kids, as she allowed them to watch television with her for hours while she tuned into tacky reality TV. This is something the housekeeper had mentioned to me casually. I soon realized bringing this up was a mistake, as she flared up and accused me of spying on her through the housekeeper. She went on a tirade against me, stating that she wouldn't stand for this anymore and was done being pushed around while I sat at a desk for a few hours every day. She claimed it was my fault that I couldn't afford a housekeeper and that it was shameful for me to beg her to help me since I was supposed to be the man of the house. It was illogical, and she was just grasping at straws to make it seem like there was nothing wrong with her not contributing and that I was the crazy one for expecting her to actually pull her weight around the house. We ended up getting into a massive fight. She called me a loser who couldn't afford to be with a woman like her, and I retaliated by calling her a lazy cow who had already failed at being a good mother, given how scared our eldest daughter was of her, and now she was failing as a wife as well. That remark really got to her, and she shoved me hard. I lost my balance and fell back onto the coffee table, shattering the glass and injuring myself. I had to be rushed to the ER, and she kept apologizing and crying the entire time. Luckily, it was just my back that was injured, with all surface-level injuries. But I could have seriously hurt myself, and I no longer trusted Angela. I told her she had to move out because I didn't trust her around the kids. There was no telling when she might lose her temper around them and end up hurting them too. I asked my parents to care for our daughters until Angela was gone. For a week, she protested, saying she would never let this happen again, but I just didn't trust her anymore. I almost filed for divorce, but she begged me to give her a chance. By the end of the week, we concluded she would live with her parents for a time and undergo therapy. Only when she had been given a clean bill of health by a medical professional would I allow her to move back in with us. There was clearly something wrong with her because happy people don't act that way, but she was willing to work on it and get better. I didn't want my daughters to grow up without their mother, so I agreed not to get divorced right then and give our marriage a second shot. We were also going to marriage counseling while we lived separately, but eventually it all turned out to be useless because she ended up cheating on me. My parents had moved in with me to help out with my daughters while Angela was living with her parents. We attended counseling sessions weekly, and things seemed to be getting better for a while. I was also in touch with her therapist, who told me Angela had been suffering from postpartum depression but was improving. One of her symptoms had been anger issues, which she didn't have before, but they got way out of control when she shoved me, and that was a wake-up call for both of us. This went on for almost a year, and around the 6-month mark, I even allowed her to visit our daughters under my supervision. She was slowly becoming her old self again, and I was glad to see that. It finally felt like our situation was improving and we could actually make it work. But then, all of a sudden, she stopped attending our counseling sessions without any explanation. She also stopped responding to me, but I knew she was making progress since her therapist kept me updated. It didn't make sense to me, and for weeks I kept trying to talk to her, but she would just blow me off, saying she wanted some time to herself. Finally, after almost 3 months of her avoiding me, I decided to visit her at her parents' place. I hadn't done that earlier because her parents didn't like me and blamed me for Angela's behavior, believing I had driven her crazy and made her act out. She had told me it would be better not to visit her while living with them, as it would just lead to more drama. But I broke that rule and visited them anyway, as she had been acting distant and skipping counseling sessions. Even when she would show up occasionally, she seemed uninterested, and I couldn't make sense of it. The day I showed up at her parents' house, I expected her to be home, but she wasn't there. When I asked her parents where she was, they told me they weren't allowed to share that information and slammed the door in my face. I could tell they were enjoying this, and I had a bad feeling about it. So, I decided to call Angela while standing in front of her parents' house. I tried calling her several times, but she didn't pick up, and I was growing more paranoid by the second. I decided to sneak around the house to get inside myself. I went around to the backyard because I knew her parents usually kept the kitchen door open, but I didn't even need to go that far because I spotted Angela sitting on a swing her parents had in the backyard. The bad news was that she was facing away from me, making out with a man I didn't recognize. It's been a long time since I saw it, but it's imprinted in my brain because it was the most horrible moment of my life, and I haven't been able to forget it even today. The guy she was making out with pulled back as soon as he saw me, and by the time Angela turned around, I had already started walking back to my car. She caught up with me and tried to stop me, but I wasn't hearing anything she was saying because I was in shock. She tried to grab me, but I shook her off and told her not to touch me. I got back in my car and began driving home. Once I was safe, I blocked her on every platform to ensure she wouldn't have a chance to explain herself and informed my parents that I wanted them to look for a lawyer for me, detailing what I had just witnessed at Angela's parents' house. I didn't see or hear from her until we had to meet with the court-appointed mediator for our divorce settlement. By that point, I had turned into a robot, functioning solely for the sake of my daughters while completely shutting down emotionally. I didn't feel anything, even when I learned that Angela was terminating her parental rights because she had decided she didn't want to be with us anymore. She wanted to be with the guy, Sean, that I had seen her with. Sean was her childhood friend, and while they had grown apart after high school, they reconnected when she moved back in with her parents, and she had apparently fallen in love with him. Her parents supported this, which explained why they had remained silent about her making out with him in their backyard, despite being a married woman with 2 kids. They had always wanted her to end up with Sean and were happy that Angela was finally choosing herself and her own happiness, as if she had ever been capable of prioritizing anyone other than herself. The divorce process was long because even though she had cheated on me, she still wanted to qualify for alimony. My lawyer and I fought hard to ensure she didn't receive anything in the divorce, since everything was rightfully mine, given that I had paid for everything for so long while she did nothing but watch television at home. It has been 5 years since the divorce finally came through, and we succeeded in ensuring she walked away with nothing. The months during the divorce were some of the hardest times for me, but I knew I couldn't break because I had to take care of my daughters. They had nobody except for me. My parents were incredibly supportive, and I can't thank them enough for being there as I juggled work and care for my kids. It has been 5 years, and even though back then the divorce seemed like the worst thing that could possibly happen to me, I am thankful for it now, because I don't think I would be in the place I am today had it not been for my decision to leave Angela. Life has treated me well since then, and I'm in a much better place now in every respect. We moved into a bigger house because I earn better now, and I don't have to spend money on anyone apart from myself and my daughters. Additionally, my parents live close by and drop in from time to time. I have friends who love me, and my daughters are as happy as can be. That's all a man needs, and I'm so thankful to the universe that everything is going well for me now. Or it was. Until Angela showed up again a few days ago. The kids were at school, and I had just about to leave for work when the doorbell rang, and Angela was standing outside with a boy beside her. The boy couldn't have been older than 3 or 4 years old, and I knew he must be Angela's son. I was taken by surprise when I saw her at my door and was still trying to process it when she started crying, saying she was here to apologize and make things right with me. She claimed she was finally ready to be a family again and give our marriage another chance. I couldn't believe Angela was back after all these years, now wanting to give our marriage another shot as if it was entirely up to her. Within a split second, I made up my mind to shut the door and turn her away because I didn't want to get involved in whatever this was. However, before shutting the door, I told her that this was not her family anymore. I had stopped being her husband the day she cheated on me with Sean. The divorce was merely a legal obligation, and she herself had given up custody of our daughters. Now, she had no right to refer to us as her family. After I said that, I shut the door and told her to leave because I didn't want her anywhere near my property. I would have cursed her out as I was furious, but I refrained out of consideration for the little boy. I could hear her wailing outside my door for a couple of minutes after I shut her out, but I decided to ignore it. And once I ensured the coast was clear, I left for work. I tried hard not to think about it, as that would weaken my resolve, and I couldn't afford to let that happen. I almost succeeded in forgetting that Angela had shown up at my house. But as soon as I returned home I received a call from my parents demanding an explanation for why I had turned her away. They informed me that Angela had contacted them after I shut the door in her face and had been devastated by my rejection. My parents said they were the ones who had given her my new address and encouraged her to visit, as she was in the process of getting divorced from Sean and finally had a chance to make things right with me. They told me that Angela had reached out to them about a month ago, and this had been in the works for quite some time. My parents believed it was time for me to think about my kids, because they needed a mother, and they argued there was no better mother than Angela. They decided she deserved another chance and told her where to find me and what to say. I got really angry at them because it was not their place to forgive her and decide to give her another chance without even consulting me. It could have been disastrous if the kids had been home, and it was reckless of them to pull something like this, so I told them off. However, they refused to acknowledge that they had made a mistake, arguing they had helped me during my divorce by taking care of the kids. Even now, they occasionally look after my daughters, believing that whether or not I wanted to reconcile with Angela was up to me. They insisted they had an equal right to decide what was best for the kids, and I couldn't take that away from them. I found their reasoning ridiculous because, at the end of the day, they were my daughters and not theirs. While I respected my parents and would always be thankful for their help during my divorce, it wasn't their place to let Angela back into my life. We got into a bit of a fight, but they told me I was the one who was out of line and being selfish by not giving Angela another chance. They said they'd done their due diligence and were sure she was a different woman now who deserved to be part of my daughters' lives. Even when I reminded them that she had signed her parental rights away, they told me it was insulting to think they would put my daughters or me in harm's way. They accused me of ruining their lives by being too arrogant to accept that my daughters needed their mother. It's been a few days now, and I don't think I was out of line or selfish for not giving my ex-wife a second chance at being a mother. Update. About a week has passed since Angela showed up at my door with her son, and I've recently discovered the truth about her relationship with my parents. Honestly, it's so disturbing that I don't know where to begin, and I'm still struggling to process it myself. It's mind-boggling how all of them have betrayed me without batting an eye. Apparently, not only were they the ones to tell her my new address, but they had been in touch with her all along. I had cut her out of my life after the divorce, but they hadn't because they believed she would come around eventually. They didn't communicate much, perhaps once a month, but that was enough for me to feel betrayed. Sean had made Angela sign away her parental rights after she signed the divorce papers and had given her an ultimatum to either abandon her family and start anew with him or keep in touch with her kids and fight for their custody, which would mean leaving him behind. According to my parents, this had been a difficult choice for her, but she ultimately chose Sean to create a new family with him instead of sticking with the one she already had. My parents said Angela contacted them shortly after I filed for divorce, discussing her situation and asking for help to remain in contact with her kids. She privately told them she felt backed into a corner by both of us. Regardless, she wouldn't be able to see her kids since I was fighting for full custody with supervised visitation rights, while Sean had instructed her to abandon her kids altogether. Even if she did fight for custody, her chances of obtaining partial custody were slim, given the circumstances of our divorce and her history of anger issues. Fighting for custody seemed like a waste of her resources, especially considering she could lose both Sean and custody of our daughters. Her parents had met with her privately and practically begged them to let her stay in touch with her daughters. My parents seemingly agreed to act as a bridge between Angela and the kids. They successfully deceived me for years, going behind my back to allow Angela to meet our daughters. According to them, Angela's situation struck a chord with them, and they believed they couldn't, in good conscience, keep a mother apart from her kids. Stabbing their own son in the back for years, however, didn't hurt their conscience one bit. They told me that whenever I dropped our kids off at their house, they would invite Angela over and let her spend time with them. My daughters never mentioned meeting their mother because my parents bribed them with toys and candy to keep quiet. So, anytime I would ask them about what they did at their grandparents' house, my daughters would tell me they played games with my parents and their friend. I always assumed they must be talking about my parents' actual friends, whom I already knew. But apparently, that's what my parents had instructed my daughters to refer to their mother as, in case I asked about their day. I couldn't believe my daughters had been lying to me as well, but I forgave them because they're just kids. And Angela and my parents had clearly manipulated and intimidated them into keeping quiet. After learning the truth from my parents, I confronted my daughters about whether they had been secretly meeting their mother behind my back. They started crying, claiming they couldn't tell me because they would be punished by God if they did. Angela and my parents must have really drilled that into their heads, instilling fear of dire consequences if they ever told me the truth. That's why they had been so secretive and vague all along. I also felt like a terrible father for never asking my daughters which friends of my parents they were spending time with, as it could have just as easily been someone else, someone more dangerous than Angela, and I never would have found out. But I'm determined to put an end to this now, as I plan to get a restraining order against all of them. I already have written proof because my parents sent me an email revealing the truth just a couple of days after our fight. They believed that the email would make me realize how desperate Angela was to remain a mother to her daughters without losing the alleged love of her life, hoping it would somehow lead me to forgive everyone involved. But instead, it only made me realize that I couldn't trust anyone here anymore. It's ironic how Angela signed away her parental rights and had to resort to meeting our kids in secret as if it were a crime. All because Sean didn't want her to have contact with her previous family, despite him being her supposed one true love. Now, even they were getting divorced, and all of it turned out to be for nothing. They even had a son together, but according to my parents, Sean wanted nothing to do with her or his child now because he had received a job offer and was moving away in a couple of months. Angela had started working again recently, and their son had started kindergarten, so she didn't want to move with him, which is why they had been fighting for a long time. It all came to a head 3 months ago when Sean told her he was done and taking the job. He didn't have any interest in being a family man anymore because it meant sacrificing his own future and happiness just to make her happy, which he wasn't willing to do. While this was supposed to make me feel sorry for Angela, it only served to make me feel like justice had finally been served. I have already spoken to my lawyer, and the petition for the restraining orders has been filed. My daughters and I have had a serious discussion about all of this, and I informed them that moving forward, they will never see their grandparents or their mother again. They seem okay with it for now, but we're still going to attend therapy to help navigate the difficulties they may face. This situation has likely been challenging for them over the past 5 years, but this all ends now. Update 2. Hey guys, thank you so much for all the concern and support. I'm really grateful that so many of you have sent lovely messages and blessings to my daughters. My parents and Angela have been served with restraining orders and are supposed to appear in court in a few days. I don't know how they feel about any of this because I have blocked them on every platform and told my friends not to speak to them in case they reach out. I have also increased security around my house and have been working from home for the past few days. I spoke to my daughter's school authorities and informed them of the situation. Initially, I didn't intend on letting them go to school for a few days, but I didn't want their education to suffer because of Angela and my parents. The teachers are now supposed to keep an eye on them and not allow anyone other than me to pick them up after school. I'm doing everything I can to ensure they can't reach us because I'm sure they will try. So far, everything has been going well, and I hope that after we get the restraining order, they will continue to stay away. Update 3. Hi, so this will be a brief update. We received the restraining order, and for the next 5 years, all 3 of them are required to keep their distance from me and my daughters, or they'll face serious consequences. I'm still maintaining all the security measures I implemented because the last time I saw them, they looked really angry, and I don't want to risk anything. My daughters and I are attending regular family counseling sessions, and I believe we're going to make significant progress in the coming few months. We have already made considerable progress, and honestly, all I want now is for my daughters to be happy, and that's it. So please continue to send us your best wishes. We really need them. As we navigate this difficult time, my focus remains on ensuring my daughters feel safe and supported. We're learning to communicate more openly in our therapy sessions, and it's heartening to see them begin to express their feelings. They deserve stability and to thrive without the influences of their mother or my parents muddying the waters. I've also taken steps to reinforce boundaries regarding our new life. School has been a refuge for my daughters, and I want to ensure they enjoy their time there without the worry or fear stemming from our past. I'm also committed to fostering friendships with other families and creating a supportive community around us. It's a process, and there are days when the memories of the past threaten to cloud my mind. However, I'm determined to focus on the present and the bright future ahead for my daughters and me. As we continue to heal together, I feel hopeful about what lies in store for us. Life may not have gone as planned, but perhaps it led us to a path where we can find happiness and fulfillment without the chaos that Angela and my parents introduced into our lives. Thank you all for your understanding and kindness during this time. Your support has truly made a difference in our journey forward.
Honestly, your situation is incredibly complicated, and I can see why you'd feel so conflicted. You've worked hard to build a stable environment for your daughters after everything that happened with Angela. It's clear you're trying to prioritize their well-being and safety above all else, which is commendable. However, I think it's important to also consider the implications of completely shutting her out of their lives. Children often have an innate desire to connect with their parents, regardless of the circumstances, and that desire doesn't just disappear. It could lead to issues in the future, like resentment towards you for keeping them from their mother. While Angela's behavior has been unacceptable and you can't just overlook that, perhaps there's a way to create carefully monitored visits or interactions that protect your daughter's emotional needs, while also helping them process their feelings about their mother. It's vital to create a balance, and I think a family therapist might be able to assist in navigating this situation. Ultimately, your wise choices now will help shape how your daughters view family and relationships in the future.
Honestly, good call shutting the door. You have to prioritize your well-being and your daughters.
I feel like it's worth hearing her out. It could be a chance for her to apologize and take responsibility. Sometimes people do change, and maybe she's realized what she lost.
Your parents are insane for allowing her back in your life. They should be helping you heal and raise your kids, not facilitating contact with someone who betrayed you so severely.
We can't deny that children benefit from having both parents in their lives, but here's the thing, Angela chose to give up her family. Kids need stability. A mother who can't control her impulses isn't a safe bet, regardless of how much they might want her.
This is obviously complicated. On one hand, you want to protect your daughters from potential emotional harm, but on the other hand, completely excluding their mother could lead to resentment and feeling abandoned in the long run. Maybe some supervised interaction could be helpful?
Let's be real, Angela has shown she can't be trusted. It's concerning that your parents are so eager to bring her back into the picture. This isn't just about her, it's about your children's safety and emotional health.
Your daughters need a safe and stable environment. It's good that you care about their relationship with their mother, but if Angela's behavior continues to be erratic, allowing her back could create chaos that your girls may not handle well.
In many cultures, the notion of family reconciliation is very strong. Your parents might genuinely believe they're doing the right thing by trying to reconnect Angela with her children. Still, their approach seems misguided in this context.
I completely understand your instinct to protect your daughters from what you've been through, but I have to ask, have you really thought about the long-term effects of cutting off their mother entirely? Kids form complex relationships and feelings about their parents, and while it's understandable that you want to shield them from potential harm, denying them that connection might lead to deeper issues later on. Instead of completely severing ties, consider a conditional approach where Angela can slowly earn trust back. This could mean supervised visits or starting with family counseling where all parties are present. Your daughters might need to know that while Angela made mistakes, every person has the potential to change. This could also help them to frame their mom's actions within a context of understanding rather than resentment. The reality is, children often want to believe the best in their parents. They might just surprise you with their resilience if given the chance. So while I see your anger and frustration, I hope you can consider a path that allows for healing on all sides.
Your daughters are going to have questions as they grow up. If you cut Angela off completely, they might resent you later on. Keeping the door ajar for some form of communication could help them explore their feelings about their mother.
Refusing to let their mother in could cause more harm. Set strict boundaries, but consider allowing some form of communication to help your daughters process their relationship with her, especially if they start to ask about her.
You're doing the right thing by putting your kids first. They need stability, especially after everything that has happened. Keeping them away from Angela might be challenging, but it's a necessary step for their well-being.
Sometimes people make ridiculous mistakes, and it doesn't always mean they're forever unworthy of love and forgiveness. Have you thought about the possibility of Angela genuinely trying to change? She might genuinely want to be better for her children.
She's already pushed you and the kids away by her actions. To even suggest a reunion is manipulative and unfair to everyone involved.
You mentioned moving forward quite a bit. From a long-term perspective, have you and Angela considered therapy? It could help each of you work through personal issues and the family dynamics at play here.
Your parents don't seem to grasp the severity of the situation. They think they're helping, but they're not. They should respect your wishes about Angela and understand that reconnecting could bring chaos back into your kids' lives.
Shouldn't we at least consider Angela's viewpoint? It is conceivable that she has undergone significant personal revelations and could be a different person now. Life circumstances can completely change someone.
Trust once broken is difficult to rebuild. You've done the work to ensure your family is in a better place now. Stay vigilant and focused on your daughter's needs as you navigate this complex family situation.